boom. I could not do that all over again. So, why did I become an entrepreneur? Well, the truth is, I have not been able to live in this country, in this area, by myself with 2 children without entrepreneurship. What I realized is that my story is not a black girl story. I mean, granted, yes, black women are facing discrimination at high levels, and that's not to negate that. But what I'm saying is I realize that my story is an American story. It ain't all black people working at a patent and trademark office. It ain't all black people being teachers. There's several people in this country that cannot afford to live, and entrepreneurship was actually my way out. It wasn't until going through this stint of entrepreneurship that I'm currently on where I ended up making enough money through my print shop and my company to be able to get off of Section 8 and live the way that I live now. Where like really sometimes the workforce doesn't feel like an option. And that's why I created Black Girl Ventures. To create access to capital, to create vehicles for access to capital, to empower and inspire and encourage people to create their own capital where it feels like there is none. So I want to find as many ideas across the world that I can, and as many entrepreneurs to tell them, listen, if I can go from a teen mom to being on Section 8 to running 2 companies successfully, so can you. I had my first child when I was 17, and I, from there, was just wilding out in school, but that is one of the things that kind of shaped me up. It was like, okay, we gotta go. My mom pushed me to go to college, and long story short, had another child in college, and so here I am with 2 children. I'm like, yeah, this salary, even as a teacher, can't cut it. So I'm like, I need to do other things. And I've been entrepreneurial my whole life, I would say. My first company was a web development company. It didn't quite work out. And this was like back in the day when there was just macro media. There was no Adobe suite yet. So everybody was a full stack developer when I learned how to program. There was no like, oh, I'm a designer, and then, oh, I'm a back end. Like, no, everybody was full stack. But I would say over the course of the years, I've done so many different jobs. I've been a nanny. I've been what I would say is a private eye, but that's another story. And I always felt a sense of freedom through entrepreneurship, but could never find a thing that could make as much money to where I could just really, really do it for my life. So fast forward to about 2010. I've been teaching for a while. I was teaching computer science to high school students, and decided I was going to give entrepreneurship a try. I was going to go full-time as an artist. I was like, hey, I can do this thing. I'm writing my poems. I got a couple features. I'm jumping out there. And I used to say, like, I don't know more, like my poems might not be better than other poets, but I knew how to do technology. So I knew how to plant myself. At the time, which would be now spoken of as marketing and branding, was just me planting myself everywhere that I could go on the internet. And so I busted out really strong, started performing constantly, open mics. I started working for busboys, hosting and meeting different people. And it was really great. I even did a tour, went to North Carolina, went across to like several cities and several open mics and things, and performed, and it was great. So I'm like, hey, my grandmother passed away in 2010, actually. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to live my life to the fullest. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to jump out there. I'm going to quit this teaching job. And they thought I was crazy. I wanted to leave teaching in the middle of the year. And I remember a white woman, and she pulled me into her office. And she said, if you leave in the middle of the year, you will never come back to work in this school system again. And I was like, wow. Like, I found me another job within the school system that would allow me to be more of a full-time entrepreneur. But this, like, kind of private meeting that I couldn't really fight. I remember going to, like, a couple of the person of color that was over our, like, employee resource group as a teacher, and he was just like, it sucks. And they've done this to people before, but there's nothing we can really do about it, like, kind of thing. And I thought, wow. So whatever powers that be can have certain levels of control over me and my thoughts and my feelings, and it's like nothing I can do about it. or no one to complain to. And this person, who is now a high level person within this same school system, is known for being a bully. But okay, so I stuck it out to the end of the year, and after that I was like, I'm out. And I started performing poetry full time. I started an arts organization, all these things, and it was great. Did my own poetry festival. This is how I learned how to bring people together. This is how I learned how to organize large events. This is how I learned how to market and brand. This is how I learned all these things are what people are seeing now come forward as Black Girl Ventures and my print company and things like that. I learned this through being an artist. I learned how to get creative on the spot. I learned how to partner with large organizations. I started the first poetry slam in the city of Alexandria. It was called Slam Alexandria. I was an arts partner with the Northern Virginia Fine Arts Association. I worked with the Smithsonian National African Art Museum to bring a poetry slam to them. And we did a poetry slam based off of the Hunger Games, which is a huge hit. We had over 300 people. It was amazing. But this was the kind of work that I was doing, which was knowing how to bring people together and put them in an audience and have other people present in front of them through poetry slams, share their art, share their stories. So if you look at where I am now with the work I do with Black Girl Ventures, it's pretty much the same thing. I'm putting people on stage to share their stories, to share what is now their art, which is their business. So fast forward, 2014, I ended up going back to work a job. So for those of you who think that, when you fail as an entrepreneur, that means you had to get a job, no. Sometimes you have to go back and get a job. Sometimes you have to go back and get a job to make more money so that you can go back out and do entrepreneurship again. So if that's you, don't give up and keep it moving because you still got your entrepreneurial spirit. Went back to work, a job that I ended up moving through the ranks. I ended up being a program manager over a multi-million-dollar contract, working with workforce development. And it was my first time ever really, really getting an understanding of what poverty was. When people on the news say poverty, working in DC in the workforce development industry was super eye-opening for me. I saw poverty, like homeless people that were coming into our agency every day for support, women with several kids, that we were there to support. And that work meant a lot to me because I love supporting people and pushing people forward. It also gave me a huge amount of insight into human need. Again, I would say this experience also supported the work that I do with Black Girl Ventures. Because I myself, while working there at that time, was also on Section 8. So when I've worked several amazing jobs and been on Section 8 and had public assistance and had food stamps, I've been a teacher, which is seen as a very prestigious position in our country, even though they don't pay us, right? But they honor us for doing the job, right? I worked for the Patent and Trademark Office before, and I was reviewing patents in the database art, and I made a decent salary, still on Section 8. The reality is, I've not been able to live in this country making even a fair salary with 2 kids by myself in this area, period, without entrepreneurship. I'll say that again. The truth is, I have not been able to live in this country, in this area, by myself with 2 children without entrepreneurship. What I realize is that my story is not a Black girl story. I mean, granted, yes, Black women are facing discrimination at high levels, and that's not to negate that. But what I'm saying is I realize that my story is an American story. It ain't all Black people working at the Patent and Trademark Office. It ain't all Black people being teachers. There's several people in this country that cannot afford to live, and entrepreneurship was actually my way out. It wasn't until going through this stint of entrepreneurship that I'm currently on where I ended up making enough money through my print shop and my company to be able to get off of Section 8 and live the way that I live now. It wasn't until starting Black Girl Ventures and pushing forward in this work to be able to get the notoriety that I have. So I launched my print shop, and my mom just blessed to be able to invest some money in me. I took my tax money and bought machines. And through that is how I started really, really growing my business. It took me about a year and a half using Instagram really hardcore for us to land into a national publication, a national publication, Essence Magazine, for my print company, for the shirt company made by a Black woman. And through that, I started printing shirts for other people. I landed deals with Amazon and Google, and I noticed that Black women are not receiving access to capital. I looked at my own journey and said, you know what, if I could do anything about this, if I could do anything about what I've seen happen in workforce development, where like really sometimes the workforce doesn't feel like an option. And that's why I created Black Girl Ventures, to create access to capital, to create vehicles for access to capital, to empower and inspire and encourage people to create their own capital where it feels like there is none. So we get together, we have a pitch competition. It's like Shark Tank with an audience. We include the audience in donating and giving, and the audience also gets to vote on who wins. So it's like Shark Tank with an audience, but everybody's a shark. And everybody gets to donate, everybody gets to determine who wins, and we walk away and we have a good time. Black Girl Ventures is modeled after the rent party, which in the early 1900s, black people couldn't, In the early 1900s, a lot of Black people migrated to Harlem. White landowners raised the rent, and Black people would throw parties just to be able to pay the rent to stay in their homes. So when I think about the level of ingenuity and how we all know how to get together and make some money happen, that's exactly what I did with Black Girl Ventures. And so here we are. We're going into our third year. We funded 16 women. We have traveled to 7 cities. We will be traveling to 9 cities in 2019. We will fund as many Black and brown women as we can. I want to find as many ideas across the world that I can, and as many entrepreneurs to tell them, listen, if I can go from a teen mom to being on Section 8 to running 2 companies successfully, so can you.
Okay.
Boom.
Speaking of that, I just had an idea.
I could not do that all over again. So.